Today we're going to explore some of the regrets that retirees in their 70s have. This actually comes from a YouTube video that blew up where a retiree actually talked about some of these things. I want to explore these with Lee, see if he's seen the same things with the people he's working with, and really kind of make you aware of those areas that people really regret in retirement. That's coming up.
Welcome to the My Retirement Clarity Podcast, where our goal is simple: to help you close the gap between what you know and what you implement. The team at Perkins Wealth Management does this by helping good people make great decisions so they can enjoy an amazing retirement. And now, here's your host and financial advisor, Lee Perkins.
Well, glad to have you once again on My Retirement Clarity. I'm Ben George with Lee Perkins. He is the owner and financial advisor at Perkins Wealth Management. Lee, how are you?
Good, man. Like we talked about on the last episode, we're in the middle of my favorite season of the year. Mm-hmm. It's not summer, it's not fall, it's football season, and that is my favorite time of the year. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. We've got a lot of things going on here at the office. We've got a what we call our Perks Champions Club event coming up towards the end of October. So I don't know exactly when this episode will post, but just a great way for us to honor and recognize some new client families that have joined our JLP family over the last year and a half. So looking forward to that.
I love it. It's always good to hear. I know this time of year you really spend time with the clients, even more so than usual with the holidays coming up too. I know we'll be getting to that a little bit to close out the year. But if you have any questions for Lee or want to catch up with him, obviously the best thing to do is go to myretirementclarity.com. But if you want to schedule a meeting with Lee, you can go to talkwithjlp.com and pick out a time that works for you. All right, so Lee, I mentioned it in the tease start the show that there was a video that blew up as a retired YouTuber that actually explored 5 regrets that other retirees had. He went around and interviewed people in their 70s, and it blew up. So obviously there's a lot of interest in this, and we get a lot of that interest here on the show, people planning for retirement, wanting to get prepared, get ahead, be ready, be proactive. So I want to talk about that a little bit, these 5 regrets, and maybe hear some stories from you of what you've seen, what you've heard from people that have gotten to their 70s or even their 60s, they get ready for retirement and go through this. So I think it's really interesting to kind of explore these ideas.
Yeah. So lots of times when you're just hearing from an expert or somebody like that, sometimes their knowledge isn't based on reality and what's happened. And so I think it's cool that the guy actually interviewed people and talked to people in the real world. And kind of that's what we'll do today. I'll kind of share some of the experiences that I've had with working with retirees and pre-retirees, I guess for the last 17, 18 years. I don't even know how long I've been doing this. It's been a while, coming up on 20 years and not too long. But this should be hopefully an interesting topic for the listeners because nobody wants to be on their deathbed and have regrets. And so hopefully we'll be able to help people have fewer regrets when that time comes.
Yeah, and we'll drop that YouTube video in the description. So if you want to watch it for yourself, go for it. But let's dive in here, Lee. So 5 regrets. Let's start with this one. I think maybe the more common theme that we see in this video, but also probably across the board is, people wish they had retired earlier. And I think that's interesting because a lot of us talk about early retirement, but the fact that people had that regret that they didn't retire early was interesting to me.
Yeah, and I think this is mainly because a lot of times people just get too caught up in reaching some type of milestone number, maybe because it's something that Dave Ramsey said or Susie Orman or somebody like that said, you got to have $1 million to retire comfortably or $1.5 million or $2, whatever that number is. And so sometimes people will just zero in on this number and they think that retirement is not really reachable. And as we've discussed many times on this podcast, and I do it in my conference room all the time, your ability to retire when you want and have the quality of retirement that you want to have is not so much based on how much money you have, it's how much you spend. And so it's a balance between, yes, having a bunch of money saved. I've never met anybody that said, you know what, Lee, I've got too much money. That doesn't happen. But it's, again, more about how much you spend. But I think, I don't know, people just don't know if they're ready. And I think a lot of people don't know if they're ready because they don't reach out for help. They search on YouTube or try to Google, hey, how much do I need? And they're not really asking the right questions. But at the end of the day, I think people just don't know what they don't know. But once people are retired, man, they will tell me that it's better than they imagined. And I asked them if, well, have you got any regrets? And a lot of these people will say, boy, I wish I'd have done this sooner. But they want to continue to give their company another year because I want to put another $15,000 into my 401k, get a little match. And I'm like, man, if you step back and look, you are trading that year of your life for, $20,000 or $30,000. And for many of our clients, there are weeks where their account will grow $20,000 or $30,000 just with a good market. It happens. And so again, to kind of maybe summarize this point a little bit earlier about maybe retiring earlier, remember that time is the most valuable resource that any of us have. And once you retire and once you experience that freedom of time, that allows your mind to consider things that you've never thought that were possible. And so, so if you can pull the trigger early, do it. But you want to, talk to somebody like me or another advisor that can let you know if financially you are ready.
Yeah, I think it's, we have a fear of the unknown. And I think that's just, it kind of speaks to that. Or, we do this all the time, Lee, where we look back and go, man, I wish I wouldn't have been afraid to do this earlier. I could have been in a much better place, been much happier had I just explored this idea earlier. Same with retirement. I think a lot of people will work because they fear about that running out of money or not having a plan for income and all these sort of things that planning solves, right? It's just sitting down and building a plan to give you the confidence to know exactly when you can retire so you don't have to worry about, man, could I have done this earlier?
100%. Yeah, the fear of unknown paralyzes people and they put off decisions that they don't really need to put off. Hey folks, Lee Perkins here. I wanted to tell you about our brand new book called Next Phase, How to Retire in a Year or Less Without Regrets. It's all about helping you prepare for the next phase of your life, whatever that looks like for you. So, if you're ready to make the most of your next phase, or if you're already retired and aren't sure you're doing all you can to get the most out of your retirement, then you'll want a copy of this book. All you have to do is text Next Phase to 478-475-2050, and we'll send you a copy right away. You can also access additional resources and register for one of our upcoming workshops at our website, www.myretirementclarity.com. Thanks for listening. Now back to the show.
All right, another regret that came up in this video was people regretted that they didn't spend more when they first retired, which I thought was interesting, Lee. I know you talked about this before, that sometimes you got to push people to spend because our mindset has always been to save. But I think specifically pointing out when they first retired, I think was interesting. So elaborate on that a little bit. Why do people regret not spending money early in retirement?
Yeah, and I think because in the beginning, people are so money focused. They're so focused on the balance and everything's new. And what if the market goes down and I lose $70,000 or whatever? They're scared of running out of money. That fear of the unknown, and what people in my industry always say is, you got to do this or do that or you're going to run out of money. And so that fear becomes really real for a lot of people. But I'm telling you, this just rarely happens. Most of my clients, I would say a vast majority of my clients, they wind up dying with more money than they had when they retired. And some people, not all of them, because we're trying to be better about encouraging our clients to spend money, but a lot of people live like they're going to run out of money next Friday, and it just doesn't happen. So I'm not worried about my clients running out of money. I'm worried about my clients running out of time, and that means passing away earlier before they got a chance to enjoy it. So like I've said before, time is our most valuable resource that we have, and you can't buy more of it. But now you get more of it by structuring your life in a way that makes better use of your time. But I try to encourage people, they should probably spend more in the first 5 or 8 years of their retirement, because really I want you to knock some things off your bucket list. This is when you're young enough and healthy enough to do the things that you need to do. So, and also being in the first, I would say the biggest expense for a retiree in the first 6 months is going to be home repairs. And this never fails. Once we get 3 or 4 months past their retirement date and their mind starts to say, okay, I'm settling in. I didn't run out of money already, but you know what? I want to upgrade the kitchen. I want to, remodel the bathroom. That's where a big chunk of money comes. But after 9 months or so, they sort of settle into that routine. Now's when I wanted to really start spending some money, enjoying the things while their health is still there, which I know that kind of leads us into the next regret that some people have.
Yep, that's number 3, Lee, is they wish they took better care of their health. I think this is not exclusive to retirement, too. I think we all look back and go, man, I could have probably done a little bit different with my diet and my health
Exactly.
anytime in life, right?
Yeah. So the health is always, it's not always a regret, but it's a very common regret for a lot of people. And as we age, we're just not physically able to do some of the things that we could do. So I try to encourage people to do these things early on in retirement that you might not be able to do when you get older. And so right now, most of my client base could get on a plane and go somewhere. But there's going to come a day, and that'll happen for all of us, where not only you're not going to want to get on a plane, you're not going to be physically able to get on a plane. And that happens all the time. Now, I am not an exercise scientist, Ben, although I did stay at a Holiday Express one day last week. Not really, but I think deep down, we all know what we need to do. We need to be active. We need to eat better than we do. And I'm talking to myself. We need to start walking, just do something physically. And so, for about the last 3 weeks or so, I've been getting up early and I've been walking about 3 miles every day. And I've been doing this about, I'd say, 4 days a week. Is this a habit yet? No, but I don't dread it. I just I put on the earbuds, throw on a podcast, and it doesn't really seem like work to me. But I have clients that have taken this up in retirement, and that is now a habit for them. One client in particular that I will actually have on the show in a couple of weeks, he is walking religiously, probably 5 days a week. He's lost, I think, 60 or 70 pounds. Just feels better about himself, and that is in his daily routine, and his wife is joining him as well. So if we think about our health, we can also think about that just like we do with saving money. When is the best time to start saving money? 20 years ago. When is the next best time? It's today. All right, so think about our health. When was the best time to start exercising and getting in better shape? 20 years ago. When's the next best time? It's probably today. Now, don't go at it gung-ho. That is what I've done in the past. And if you go at it gung-ho, you'll burn out quickly, or you will early on say, this stinks, and I don't want to do that. Ease into it, pace yourself, and eventually you'll create a habit.
Yeah, I love that. It takes work, right? It takes diligence, and you got to stick to it. And that's especially true with your health. It's easy to take the shortcut when it comes to taking care of your body, but you need to make sure you focus on that. And all this conversation too, Lee, reminds me to make sure people are aware that you do provide this next phase book offer, right? We're thinking about retirement in that next phase of life. It's a perfect time to remind people to take advantage of that.
Yeah, and I think our topic today really kind of dovetails nice with what the subject of the book is, which is next phase. It's actually how to retire in a year or less without regret. So kind of pretty good timing here for that. So short book with some practical tips that somebody who is considering retirement, some things that you can really think about to hopefully help you make the best decision for you. And I also think it's a great book for people who are already retired, who just aren't sure if they've sort of found their way in this next phase. And so you can get a copy of that book just by texting next phase to 478-475-2050. You'll be prompted to add in your name and email address, and we'll give you a digital copy of that book. And of course, if you would like a physical copy of the book, we can arrange that as well.
All right, 2 more regrets I want to go through. We're looking at 5 regrets retirees have in their 70s. They wish they had taken up a hobby. Lee, this is an interesting one. Maybe one people don't think about getting ready for retirement is, what are you going to be doing with that time?
Yeah, like you referenced earlier, I think you have to have a plan for retirement. Not only a plan to retire, I'm talking about a plan for what you're going to do in retirement. You got to have an idea of what's going to fill your 8 to 5 every day going forward. And I think if you don't think about that before you retire, you're going to set yourself up for some problems in the future. Maybe not major problems, but I've seen people sort of question their decision to retire. And why is that? I just think it's because they didn't have a plan. So what if it's a hobby that you have? I'm not saying that you have to get hardcore about, being a pickleball player or a golfer or whatever it is. I think we kind of think of a hobby as sort of a physical activity. But I've seen clients that do scrapbooking. I've seen some that have just really gotten into genealogy, kind of those kind of things, what your background is. That's becoming more and more popular, and it's never been something, that specifically has never been something that I've been interested in. But I talked to somebody the other day who's probably a little bit younger than me, and hearing them kind of share a little bit about what they found about their background, I was like, that is pretty interesting. I don't really have time for that right now, but I could see me kind of dabbling in that at some point in the future. So anyway, whatever it is, I think you've got to figure out something that you're interested in, whether it's volunteering for an organization that you're passionate about. Find something to fill that time and make sure that you have something to do in retirement, maybe that keeps you a little bit active, because if you just retire, sit at home and don't do anything, your health will decline and you're not going to have a very fulfilling retirement.
All right, one last one. Lee, they wish they had traveled more. I think this is, a goal for a lot of retirees is to travel. I don't know what's holding them back necessarily, but what do you find when you talk travel with retirees?
Yeah, so this kind of goes back to me talking about getting on a plane, or your ability to get on a plane earlier in this conversation. I would just say don't put your travel plans off. You don't have to travel internationally, of course. There's a lot of great places here. I just had a client in last week who told me about, I think they said it was their favorite trip of all time. They went out west, saw Mount Rushmore, went out to the Grand Tetons, and they stopped at a few other really well-known national parks, and they used a travel agent to kind of guide them through this. And they said it was the most incredible trip that they've been on. And these folks have been all over the world. And like I said, they said just some of the sights that they saw was unbelievable. And I would say if you've got the ability, build these experiences with other family members. I mean, of course, if you can afford it, take your kids and grandkids with you. Be there to see them enjoy these things while you're still alive. And it's like, my good buddy John Maxwell said at a conference that I attended earlier this year, start giving while you're living so you're knowing where it's going. And I think it's I don't think the grammar is right there, but it's a great saying. I mean, we're all going to pass away. We're all going to leave money to our kids. They'll appreciate it, but they're not going to appreciate it like it was theirs because they didn't work for it. So why not spend some of that money to build these experiences with your kids and grandkids, especially if you got grandkids that are young enough that they still hanging out with the grandparents is pretty cool. Is your grandkids get married and they have kids, and the logistics of getting a big group together is tough. So there's, it kind of gets back to the timing of everything. The timing of it is really important. And there's a phase of life where that is more likely to happen than at other times. So yeah, just schedule it and make it happen.
We'll drop again this video in the link in the description so you can watch it for yourself if you'd like. It's interesting and some good conversation. Obviously, it's gotten a lot of attention with over 500,000 views and counting as of us recording this, Lee. But, this kind of just goes back to the overall theme of why we do this podcast and what you try to do every day is just to help people be more aware of where they are financially, what they need to do, and how to get to where they want to go so they don't have to look back with regret on anything. It may be one of these things, maybe something else completely different that they have a regret on, but sitting down and building a plan allows you to have confidence in where you're going, that you don't have to look back and say, man, I wish I did things differently.
Yep, absolutely. Have a plan, be diligent about it, and get some professional help. Talk to somebody like me, and we can help you determine whether or not you are financially able to retire. And if you are, boy, then the sky's the limit on what you do in your next phase of life.
Sure is. Again, if you want to schedule a meeting, go to talkwithjlp.com, talkwithjlp.com. Find a time on Lee's calendar that works for you. Go ahead and click that, set it up, and you'll be off and running. But again, so important to plan and have a plan and a structure in place for your future. So Lee, enjoyed kind of going through this video with you and giving some reaction, but we'll do it again soon. I enjoyed the time. Thanks.
All right. Sounds good, man. Take care. Hey there, Lee Perkins here. If you're like a lot of folks, you've been listening to this podcast for a long time now. But I've got an important question for you. Have you implemented any of the ideas that we've discussed on the show? If you haven't, what are you waiting on? You know you're not getting any younger. So here's my challenge. Don't just consume the content. Our number one goal for this podcast is to help you close the gap between what you know and what you implement. So if you're ready to implement, take that first step today and visit www.talkwithjlp.com and schedule a 15-minute phone call with one of our advisors, and we'll help you close the gap between what you know and what you implement so you can enjoy the next phase of your life. Now is your time. Don't procrastinate any longer.
Investment advisory services are offered by J.L. Perkins Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor and insurance agency. Information is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute tax, legal, or investment advice. Always consult with a qualified tax, legal, or investment professional before taking any action.